Now we have successfully downloaded the Whale packages on our machine. That means we can just run this Whale framework and you will see that we just get this tool running in our Kali machine. So let me just close everything over here. We don't need this. So now you have to use this machine or basically use this framework. So let's see how we can just do that. So here, first of all, you can see the available commands over here, and each of these commands have the information that is just given right to the next of it. And you can see the available tools, and the evasion is the payload generator, ordinance is a sub auxiliary or basically auxiliary payload. So let's use this well evasion to make the payload. So first of all, you can see that this update method is a very important method, because what happens is now and time again that the antiviruses will just update everything in order to catch our code or in order to catch our malicious code. So in order to just get that basically bypass every antivirus that is possible, you have to update this Whale framework time and again. If you don't do this, your Whale framework will be outdated and there is a high chance of your payload being caught by any of these antiviruses that is available in the market. So make sure that you update time and again if you are working with the Whale framework, because this makes your payload stronger than before, because it is going to update every database that is available in the antivirus. So this is basically some changes that Whale makes in every time and again, because we want the viruses or we want the backdoor to be uncut by any of the antiviruses. So make sure you update with this command, which is simply you can type update and you will just have the new version of the Whale framework. But now we are going to use the command. That means we have here that is the available tool, and in this case I have already told you before that we are going to use the evasion because we want to make the backdoor. So I am just saying that use and 1, because 1 is for the evasion. So if I hit enter, it is going to just give us some information now, and you can see we are inside now the Whale evasion. So we are inside the Whale evasion, and you could clearly see we have this 41 payloads loaded, and this will be also same information in your case. And you can see the available commands over here. So you can clearly see there is a back command and check vt command, which is basically check virustotal.com against the generated hashes. We'll see in the next lecture. You can see all of these command, info command, list command, use command, and everything. So let me say, if I say list, if I hit enter, you can see all of the payload, which is obviously the 41 payload, which is shown over here. 41 payload loaded, and we'll have all these available payload right here. So you can clearly see we have now this bunch of payload. You can just get any of this payload to communicate from the client to the Kali Linux. But you can see the naming convention over here. So the first one, you can clearly see that it is with the name flat.py, which obviously is a Python file, and it is written in this AutoIt. AutoIt is a programming language that is also a scripting language, same as a Python, but this is going to package your application. So this is AutoIt, and basically it works same as a PowerShell. So we write some code in the PowerShell, so that is similar to the AutoIt too. So you can see the interpreter, or basically the payload, that is written in these C languages, which is C programming languages, Go languages, which is also the powerful languages. You can see some of the payload are written in the PowerShell. You can see this bunch of payload are written in a Python. So we are going to cover what the payload we can just do, or basically we are going to cover reverse HTTPS using the socket programming, and we'll just make complete backdoor after we just cover that Python lecture. But for now we're just sticking to the Linux. That means we are going to do in the Linux way, that is in the Kali Linux way, not the Python way. So let's go and make use of maybe this 14th number, which is saying, or a 15th number. So let's go with the 15th number because this has the reverse HTTPS. So this is important. So let me first copy this because this information is very critical information. So let's copy this, and we can now let's open some leafpad, and let me just paste it over here. So this is important information. So let's go down, and you can see now that we have this bunch of payload right here. So you have to now use any of this payload in order to make that is your backdoor. So in my case, I am going to use that is the 15 number. Let's check that is in the 15 number. So I'm just saying use 15. So now it is going to give us again the information that is showing so much of required options, and these are the options that is very critical. So you can see we have this YEL host, we have this YEL port. So this is basically the host and a port that the client machine want to communicate to this Kali machine. So you have to give exact information over here because this is critical information, and if you want the client to communicate to the Kali machine, this information should be correct. Otherwise it is not going to just connect to the Kali machine. So first of all, what I'm going to do is we have to see the IP addresses because that is the YEL host over here. So in order to see the IP address of Kali, because we want the machine that is our window machine to be communicate with this Kali machine, that means we have to get the information that is IP address of this Kali machine. So if I hit enter, so you could clearly see this is the information which is the IP address of this machine. But we have to now, we basically can't simply put here and we can just write. So that is not possible. So there is this available commands in order to change these options. So what we can do is we'll just use this set option over here, and I'll just say set. And now we want this YEL host. So it is case sensitive, you can't do something like this YEL host, so it should be all in uppercase. And if I say YEL host and the IP address 192.168, and that is 1, and it is 12 or 11, okay, it may be 12, yes, 12. So this is your YEL host. So if I hit enter, then we have now changed. And if I say info again, it is only the options, not show options. So we can see now we have changed this YEL host. So we have now the YEL host with the IP of the Metasploit handler. That means we haven't seen this Metasploit. This is also a framework that is going to give us a connection, but we are just saying that we want this handler which is basically the communication. So this is the parameter which is going to give us the communication between the client and the server. So next thing, you can see the YEL port. So I'll just change this YEL port to 2. So I'll just say set YEL port, and I want maybe 4444. So let's see options again, and you can see now it has been changed to 4444, and you can also see the YEL host. Now you can see some of these information which may not be critical, but I have just figured out that if you want to just get all of these bypassed, or basically if you want to get bypass from the antiviruses that is available, then you can change, or you can also make some modified on this name field. You can do something like you can just add the username. Maybe I'll just say set username, and username maybe hacker. So hacker is the keyword that is going to be traced, so I'll just say test. So you can do something like this because we want this payload to be different from another, because if you make a unique payload, that is not going to be traced or tracked by any antiviruses. So our main aim will be that is to make a unique from others, because they have the list, or basically they have the signatures of database. They have so many payloads that is in the file as a signature in the antiviruses, so that if our file or if our payload matches with any of that signature, then they are going to say us that this payload is a virus. So that is the way antiviruses work. So make sure that you make this payload as unique as possible, because if you make unique this, then it is not going to be traced. So let me change again the some of these arguments. Let's say I want to change this processors, which is right here. So let's give this processor maybe 1, and the options, now you can also see now options, and now you can see we have changed this processor. So now if you want to now generate, you can see the option right here saying generate. So let's hit this generate. and it is giving us information what this payload will be. So I'll just say payload. Payload is my payload name. So if you also hit it, that is enter, then it is also going to give us the payload as a default. So let's hit enter, and this is going to do some information that is going to package us as a backdoor. So we have seen now that we have now, so it is saying unable to create the file because I have already created over there with the same code. So let's go over here. I think I have created with the name, so let's go over there. And in your case, if you have done this first time, it is going to create in, maybe that is in the whale. So first of all, you have to check where that is stored. So it will be stored, in my case, that is var. Let's go to the computer. Var, it will be in the library. Whale is the framework, because whale is a framework that is going to be inside this library. And now it is going to be in output and source, and you can see we have this reverse https.go and payload.go. So you can see we have created this output file, and this is the payload. And basically now next thing what you can do is you will just transfer this to the client machine. So we'll see about the listeners in the next lecture, and we'll just pass this reverse https with some basic delivery method in the upcoming lecture, and we'll just make a complete connection from the client to this server. So let's see that in the next lecture. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this lecture. So in the previous lecture we saw how we can just use that command to make the payload, but the payload was completely not right, because if you just see in this compiled version, there was not the payload that we want to create. So if you go over here in the source, it was over here, but while we go to this compiled version, it was not converted to .exe, and there is no payload.exe. So what has happened is basically in this module, or basically while making the payload, these were the some of these payload options, like there was username, processes. So that also matters while making the payload. So if you just make any mistake, or if you just customize that is beyond its capability, then it is not going to execute, or basically our compiler is not going to make us that payload. So what you have to do is you have to be inside certain boundary in order to make that payload. So let's make that correctly in this lecture now. So first of all, what I want to do is, let me just make this a little bit bigger. So after that, this is the whale. So I have just opened this whale. You know how to open. Go to the optionals, because we have here the optional. So first of all, let me show you. Let's go back to our computer, and here we have this opt. So let me show you that inside this computer we have this opt folder. Inside this opt folder you can see the whale. So in order to open that, simply open this whale.py. you'll just get this console, or you'll just get this framework here. So in order to make this, so first of all you have to use, that is, now in this case I have to list first. So I'll just say list, and there is all the payload. I want to use this 15 number payload. So let's see options one more time. So I have just changed this YL host, that is the IP address of this Kali machine, YL port to this 8080, and I haven't changed the username. Let me just change the processors, because let's say that if we want to make a unique, let's say I want to change these processors, and I want one processor. So let's check again the options. So it should be all in lowercase, because it is the case sensitive. You can see we have now set the processor as a 1. And now what you want to do is simply type generate, and this is the command that is going to generate us a payload. So now let's give some name. So in this case I want to give the name as a payload again, and let's wait for a certain time, and let's see if this works or not. So it has completely made us this payload, and it has shown that this payload is inside over here. which is this executables. So in order to just go to this location, first of all, let's navigate over there from this GUI interface, and this is inside this var. Library Whale is right here, and it is in output. And now you can see in this compiled and source you will have this payload. So let's go for this compile, and you can see this is our payload that is going to listen on that port, and it is going to have that connection on that host. So next thing what you need to do is you have to set a listener, because while sending this payload to the client will get the connection to the server. So there should be some port that the server is going to listen, so that the client will just get connection from that port. So let's make that, and in order to make that connection, you have to just first of all use this console, and this is the interface that is given by the meterpreter. So you can clearly see over here it is saying meterpreter. So this is given, or basically this is the framework, or you can also say the enterprise that is going to have us some handler in order to communicate with these Kali machines. So let's make that console, or basically that handler over here. So let's create the new window, and the interface that we are going to use is MSF console. So first of all, just type MSF console, let's hit enter, and it is going to give us the application inside this terminal. So let's wait for some moment, it is going to take some time. So now it is showing that it is starting the Metasploit framework console, and this is the framework that is giving us this Whale evasion. So let's go over here, and first handler you have to use is the exploit multi handler. So this is the, okay, it should be exploit. So this is the handler that we are going to use to have the connections. So it is done using the socket in the case of Python programming. So we'll see about that in the next upcoming sections, but in the Kali it is so easier to do with this MSF console. So let's hit enter now, and you can see now we are inside this multi handler. So the next thing what you can do is, I'll just say show options, and let's see, this is the options, but we don't have anything over here that is the name of the payload or the EL host or EL port. So let's set that first. So in order to set, that is the same method that we just did in this Whale evasion. So what you need to do is first of all set this payload the name. So if you just see that we had written something that is in our leaf pad over here, that is go meterpreter and the reverse HTTPS. So we have to now use this name of a payload right here. So it is in this Windows, because first of all we have to see where this is going to be executed. It is in the Windows and the meterpreter, and after that you have to just give the name as reverse, and okay, it's reverse HTTPS. If you use the payload that is made by the Whale, that can be the reverse TCP, then you have to type here reverse TCP. If it is reverse HTTP, you can just type reverse HTTP. So make sure that this is the name of your payload, or basically it is what we have over here, right here. So you can see if you use this name, that is reverse TCP service, you have to just type right over here. And now if I hit enter, then let's show the options one more time, and you should see now that is we have this payload now. So it was hidden in the previous case, now we have just got this payload option right here. So now you could clearly see we have these payload options, and it is showing that it is Windows meterpreter reverse HTTP. Yes, so you can see here we have these two attribute, that is name, which is EL host and EL port, and this should be exactly the same which we use while making that payload. So the EL host should be the IP address of Kali. So I'll just say EL host, and it is 192.168.1 dot, and it is 12. So this is my Kali machine EL host. Set EL port now, and that should be 8080. Now if you see one more time, that is options, you'll see we have now set inside this payload option, that is the L host and the L port, and this is the port that client is going to communicate with the server, which is our Kali machine. So let's now type this exploit to OIT exploit to initiate this handler. So now if I just hit enter, then it is going to now listen on that port. You can clearly see it has started this reverse handler, because this is reverse. We are using this reverse TCP or reverse HTTPS payload. That is the meaning of this reverse handler. So what happens is this Kali machine is not going to interact with our client. Instead, client machine or Windows machine come to communicate with us in this Kali machine, so that the firewall will get the permission, or basically will just get the permission to run the payload in the client machine, because it is the case that Kali machine is not going to just interact. If Kali machine had to interact with the client, then it is not possible, because there is antiviruses that will just block our connection. But in this case, client machine is going to communicate us in the Kali machine. That means you can clearly see that it is a reverse shell, or you can also see this is the backdoor. We'll also see the implementation in the next lecture, and in the Python lecture we'll see how we can just use this backdoor to capture the keylogs. We'll see how to capture every information, and we can also see how to capture the screenshots. We'll make all of those in the Python lecture, but for now you can see we have just handler here, which is going to listen on that port. So in the next lecture we'll just make a simple delivery technique, which will just get that payload delivered to the client, and client will just download that and it will just execute. And basically this is not the proper delivery method, but you can assume, or you can use some social engineering technique, like you can just email it with something else, or you can package it and making something like, you can say, use the AutoEat language in order to convert it to the PDF file, so that it will be just a genuine file for the client, so that they will just download it, they will just install it. So it's up to you, up to your imagination, how you can just trick, or you can just entice your client computer. So this will be wrap for this lecture. In next lecture we'll see the simple delivery technique, and we'll just implement this whale framework patterns, or basically we have here, that is a meta exploit that is going to now communicate with this client machine, and we'll just execute some of the commands in the client machine in the next lecture. See you in the next one.